Here's our host, Chris Pierce.
Good morning and welcome to Viewpoint with Chris Pierce. I'm glad to be with you this beautiful Sunday morning. And I know some of you guys may be expecting to have Justin Wayne and Doug Kagan for an OPS bond issue show, but we've done a little flip-flopping so that we can get everybody organized. So today we've got a special treat. We have a television exclusive today. We have the two candidates running for Legislative District 8 with us today. First, I want to introduce the challenger, Gwenn Aspen. Gwenn, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And then the incumbent, our current state senator for LD8, Burke Harr.
Thanks for having me today.
Well, I want to say thank you guys for coming in and having time to do this, because we asked on Facebook for people to give us questions and we had a great response. So people are watching this race. And as I said, this is the hottest race in the state legislature in the state. Right here, we have it. So let's start. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the question. They will also receive a 30-second rebuttal time. They have had the questions. I gave them to them at 4:30 this afternoon because we only have a half-hour show and we want to make sure we get the right information. So first of all, first question. Some argue that without Nebraska's good time laws, Nebraska prison population would explode above the current 157%. How do you plan to address Nebraska's overpopulated prisons without releasing dangerous people like Nico Jenkins? Gwenn, we'll start with you.
Well, I think that the good time law certainly needs to be reformed because violent criminals are getting out early. And so what I would suggest that we do is make sure that the violent criminals, and I'm talking about the rapists, the murderers, those who commit violent assault and gun crimes, serve out their sentence or earn their good time instead of automatically have it be given. And I think we just need to have truth in sentencing for the benefit of the victims. So, that's the time you serve. Now, with nonviolent offenders, I'm fine with finding creative solutions so that they aren't in the prison system, so that we kind of have to determine who we're mad at and who we're scared of. And those that we're mad at, we can be creative about it. Other states have done it, and we just have to look at best practices and do our best with those folks as well to get them back into society and working and providing for their families.
Senator Harr?
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me here today. The issue is more complex than just changing the good time. That definitely needs to be evaluated. You talk about truth in sentencing. We already have truth in sentencing. When you are sentenced, a judge is required by law currently today to say, with good time, you will be out in whatever, and it's generally half that time. Or not generally, it is half that time unless there's a mandatory minimum or you are a habitual criminal. So what we have to look at is the overall prison system. We have a situation right now where it's an embarrassment to our state. To put it bluntly, you're letting people out early before their prison time. We had mandatory minimums, we had habitual sentences, and what we found is they're letting those people out early. That's a real problem. And we don't know why the governor did it, but there are things we can do and there are things we will do. We passed LB 907. We're working with the Council of State Governments to look at what the problems are and how we can solve those problems. We will keep our violent criminals in prison, and we will work to make sure that we have factual-based answers to the nonviolent offenders.
All right, Gwenn, 30 seconds.
Well, we've had a call to action to fix this good time law for over 2 years now. It started with Montrell Wiseman, and it's been bipartisan support that for our most violent criminals, they need to stay in prison and serve out their sentence. And we're smart enough to differentiate between those that we're scared of and those that we're mad at, and we're not doing it right now.
Burke?
Again, former prosecutor, I get the difference between a violent criminal and a nonviolent criminal. What we have to do is we have to find out ways to make sure we differentiate those two, and I agree with you there. But we also have to make sure that those who are sentenced serve the sentence that they're supposed to serve, and that's not happening right now. We have an overpopulation problem. We have to address that issue. We have to continue to work with our drug courts, our diversion programs, and make sure that those who we can help without prison, we do.
All right, Burke, you get this question first. When it comes to funding and administering Nebraska's K-12 education system, in some cases there are up to 4 layers of bureaucracy and taxing authority. Would you be in favor of reducing some of those layers, such as the learning community?
Well, I think that question is missing the main point, and that's our children. The focus needs to be on our children, and not that there are 4 layers, that there are 2 layers, that there's 1 layer. I don't care how many layers of bureaucracy there are. What I care about is what's in the best interest of our children, what are best practices, and how do we apply those to our students. So for instance, learning community right now, their large focus is on pre-K education, and that's a good thing. We are, you talk about the 4 levels. K-12 is property tax mainly funded. But the question isn't how it's funded, it's what we're doing with that money. That's the key.
Gwenn?
Well, I think that the learning community could be assessed because the learning community, first of all, it is an extra layer of bureaucracy that is doing K through 12, or I'm sorry, it's doing early childhood education right now, but its mission has changed over the years. It hasn't had a specific mission, and K through 12, I think, could be administered by the current school board. I don't think we need a whole extra layer of bureaucracy to do that. And so I would like more of our education dollars to go directly to student instruction. So that would be one layer that I think we could do without. Additionally, I think we need to really focus on having more choices for parents in our school system. I think we know that kids don't fit into a box, and right now when I talk to teachers, they're stressed out by having to be everything to everyone. So if we had more choices for parents, we could inspire more children to succeed.
Burke, 30 seconds.
And I agree with you. We need to free up our classroom time so you have more time on teaching. My wife is an educator, she's an elementary school principal, and I constantly hear about the need to have a clear mission of what is expected of our teachers and to allow them time to teach what they need to teach the kids. It seems so often they're forced into preparing for this test, preparing for that test, and so I agree with you on that. And again, I don't think that is changed by the levels of bureaucracy. It's having a clear mission. That's the key.
Gwenn, you got the last 3 seconds?
Well, I just think that if we had fewer layers of bureaucracy, more dollars can go straight to the kids. That's where they need the money, and so that's why I advocate getting rid of the learning community.
Okay, well Gwenn, you're up first on this question. Each of your websites talk about lowering the tax burdens for Nebraskans. Would you support the reduction in the number of sales tax exemptions currently in our tax code? If so, which ones? And if not, why not? Gwenn?
Well, when I received this question at 4:30, I looked into the sales tax. I would take the one on the newspapers. There's a sales tax on satellite television. There was one on diplomats that come to Nebraska. So there were several that I thought could be eliminated. But basically, our main problem is that taxes are simply too high in Nebraska. And I think that the way that we reduce taxes is first look for government waste. DHHS lost $22 million in 2011 and no one's done anything about it. It was $2.5 million this last year that we have to pay the federal government because we couldn't account for Medicaid drug costs. So we have to make sure that we eliminate the waste, fraud, and mismanagement in DHHS, which is 1/3 of our state budget. And also make the tax code fairer, flatter, and lower.
Burke?
Thank you. First of all, I couldn't agree with you anything more. DHHS has been an absolute embarrassment, and we haven't done anything about it, and we need to do something. You talk about $22 million. We've lost more than that, actually. We've lost it because we've refused to go after grant money to help those who are most vulnerable on our site. So I'm glad to hear you want to do something on that. So I served on the Tax Modernization Committee, which was last summer. We traveled across state, starting in Gary, all the way to Omaha. We stopped in North Platte, we stopped in Norfolk, and we stopped in Omaha, and Lincoln as well. And we talked to people about, hey, what is our current tax structure? What works and what doesn't work? What can we do better? Sales tax is generally considered a regressive tax. And so it would be nice to eliminate some exemptions so that we can lower the overall burden. And that's what we're looking to do. The work of the Tax Modernization Committee goes on, and I think we'll have some bills to announce this upcoming session.
Gwenn, 30 seconds.
Well, I think people really need tax relief now, and they're frustrated that nothing's been done up to this point. And so tax relief is something that I'm passionate about. I'm going to be a taxpayer advocate at the unicameral.
Burke?
I couldn't agree more. We need tax breaks now. We're going to work on that, but there are two ways to do it. There's number one, we can grow our economy. That's the best way to do it. Second of all, you have to diagnose the problem. You can't just come in and say, I'm going to cut taxes. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you can probably cause more harm than good. And again, for the last 4 years, I've been examining that problem. I sit on the Revenue Committee. We have looked at the problem. This was all brought out by the governors where he tried to eliminate the income tax and add a whole bunch of new taxes on churches, hospitals. You've heard the Lee Terry ads attacking Brad Ashford. What that is an attack on LB 405.
All right, Burke, you get the first crack at this one. Obamacare seems to have survived a lot of the challenges in the courts. Now, the expansion of Medicaid failed in the last legislative session. How can Nebraska implement this new health care policy, or should Nebraska just opt out and go on their own?
Okay. First of all, I think we all understand our healthcare system was broken. Obamacare is not the answer in and of itself. It's an evolution. We need to continue to work to make it better. You talked about expanded Medicaid failed in the legislature. It had 27 votes, 27 to 21. There was a filibuster. The majority of the senators in Nebraska wanted it. The majority of the senators, I think, next fall will continue to want to expand Medicaid. You want to talk about economic development. For approximately $60 million over the next 10 years, we get $2.3 billion in federal money to take care of those who are the most vulnerable in our society. And they deserve low-cost, quality health care that they are not getting right now.
Gwenn?
Well, I would not have voted for the expansion of our current Medicaid program because it's unsustainable in its current form. It's increasing at a rate of 11%, whereas our state revenue is increasing at 6.9%. And so what I would advocate for is one of the private sector solutions that have been administered for that gap in several other states like Michigan and Arkansas and Iowa, where you have private sector insurance with a premium stipend, so to help people with the premium payments. That way we make sure it's a fiscally responsible system, we cover the gap, and we get federal funding by doing that, such as like those other states. So that's what I would advocate for.
All right, Burke, 30 seconds.
Well, you'll be happy to know then that the bill that we voted on this year was a compromise bill, and it took the Arkansas bill and the Iowa bill, and it combined the two. It was a very conservative approach, and it had just what you wanted. So when you get down there, if you get down there and you have a chance to read that bill, I hope you vote for it because you said right now that you enjoy the bill, so good.
Gwenn, you enjoyed the bill.
I don't think I said that. It was expanding our current Medicaid system.
It was using the privatization that you just talked about. It was the Iowa and Arkansas plan.
Well, I'd have to look at the details, but I'm not for expanding our Medicaid that is unsustainable at this point.
Okay.
I read the bill, it's in there.
All right, let's go to the next question, which it's going to be for Gwenn's going to go first. In what ways will you promote, you guys have both talked about economic development, so how can you, and I want to be very specific, how can you promote economic development and create jobs for the Omaha area which you represent?
Well, first of all, I think that we need to make sure that we have more educational opportunities. We have lots of vocational opportunities for jobs, and we don't have the people to fill them. So I'm glad that we're working on vocational training, especially at Benson High School. And I think we need to further those opportunities for people. So education's the first part, and then when I talk to businesses, it's always about income tax. So we need to lower the income taxes so that we can get more businesses here, and basically make taxes lower. So this was a business-friendly environment, and get businesses here.
Burke?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about what I have done and in the last 4 years. And I had an interim study in which we looked at the Nebraska Advantage Act, and we made updates to the Nebraska Advantage Act. We looked at what works and what doesn't, how can we do it better. And what we've done is taken away some of the bureaucracy out of it, and we've made it more accountable to the people. You have to go out and earn that money, the tax credits, before you get the money. So that's one thing we've done. What I would like to do is I want to have tax credits for people who invest in our low-wage workers, whether that be for internships, which we passed, which was one of my priority bills, but we can continue to make that better. I also want to do it for apprentices, to find ways to encourage businesses to hire new workers. Because if you're here, you're going to stay here. So that's one of the things I want to do. I also want to say, let's get rid of some of those tax exemptions that are don't do what they're supposed to do. Let's eliminate those. We can lower our overall tax burden. Right now, we're voted by Forbes the 6th best place to start a business. By Polina, we're number 2 pro-business state. So we're doing a lot of good things. I think we need to advertise what we're doing better.
Gwenn?
Well, the Nebraska Advantage Act is so complicated that many small businesses are not able to use it. I just read an article in the Omaha World Herald that some accountants are even advocating that their small business owners don't even take advantage of it. And so I think, and I'm not an advocate of government picking winners and losers, and it's a symptom of us needing having a sick tax system as it is. So if we made our tax system lower, flatter, fairer, and more simple, then we wouldn't need the Advantage Act. Now we live in the real world and we need it now in our current system, but I hope in the future it becomes so simple and so low and so attractive all by itself that we don't need to have special incentives to bring companies here.
Burke, 30 seconds.
Man, I wish we lived in that world where we didn't need tax incentives. I know it's a race to the bottom. We would love to be able to do what you talk about, but in the real world that doesn't work because you have businesses that are certain industries that if we want to keep them here, we have to do that. If we want to encourage certain industries to come here, it is a race to the bottom. I would love to be able to do what you do, what you talk about, and we'll work towards that. And we're trying to get to that where we can maybe make it a little less and then lower the burden. But right now, that's not the world we live in.
Gwenn?
I mean, I agree. Right now, it isn't the world we live in, but there are states that have really great pro-business tax policies, and we need to do what those states are doing. And we're not at the top of the heap. North Carolina, Texas, there are several states that have very pro-business environments, and they're bringing, everyone wants to be Texas, but we need to do what they're doing here in Nebraska.
I want to bring high-wage jobs.
Okay, we got time for one more question, okay? The city of Omaha has seen its share of disputes with its employees' unions. Union contract disputes are taken to the Commission of Industrial Relations, or CIR. Do you see a need to reform the CIR, and what reforms would you recommend, or would you support the elimination of the CIR? And this goes to Gwenn.
Well, I would support the not eliminating, but reforming the CIR. I think the two things that I would want to ensure happens is when they go to the commission that they look at cities that have the same cost of living as we do. So I think previously they've looked to Fort Worth, Texas, and Denver, which is a different cost of living than Omaha. Additionally, I would just like them to consider the total cost of pension costs to the city. So not just people that are currently working in the city or currently working, but also take into account the pension costs of those who have retired. And if we do those things, I think CIR can work for Nebraska.
Burke?
First of all, I am a proponent of CIR because it avoids strikes. It's an agreement between labor and management that says, hey, we will go to this Court of Industrial Relations so we don't have to strike. 4 years ago, Senator Lathrop brought together, and I sit on Business and Labor and was part of it, brought together the unions, both public and private, brought together the Chamber of Commerce, brought together business leaders, and brought together lawyers who are regulars in front of the Court of Industrial Relations, and hammered out a compromise. It's what makes Nebraska great, is people come together to work together for a common goal, because I think we realized we all wanted CIR. In its current form, it wasn't working. Since then, we passed reform, and it won unanimous support. It hasn't been tested yet. It's a complex formula. I think we need to give the reform a little bit more time to work itself out and see what the results are.
Gwenn, 30 seconds.
You know, I don't really have anything else to say about this. It never comes up door to door. I haven't really heard it. Have you heard about it in the? I mean, I've got to.
Well, would you like to be fair and give up your 30 seconds so she doesn't have anything, or?
I'll just say quickly, I do hear a lot of complaints about
Really?
the public pension.
I haven't heard. I've gone to 6,000 doors, and I have not heard one person mention CIR reform.
Okay. Well, we're going to give you both.
CIR reform, you're right,
Yeah.
But pension, public pensions.
Oh, I haven't heard about that either.
Okay. Well, we're going to give you both a 1-minute closing to talk to our audience and tell them why they should vote for you. Gwenn, since you had to take the first question, we're going to give you the first minute.
Okay. Well, I'm Gwenn Aspen. I'm running for the legislature in District 8, And I'm running because the legislature for too long has focused on things that no one cares about. E-cigarettes, novelty lighters, tanning beds. These are things that are not our state's most pressing issues. I'd like to focus on 3 main topics: education, making sure that every child, no matter where you grow up, gets an awesome education in this state. 2, fixing the good time law so we don't have violent offenders getting out early. And 3, making sure that our tax climate supports a vibrant economy in Nebraska. I'm also posting every single vote on Facebook so you can hold me accountable. Thanks.
All right, Burke, you get your 1 minute.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for having me here this morning. I appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in today. The reason I'm running for re-election is because it's very similar to what Gwenn Aspen talks about. I believe that we need to have first-rate quality education for our children. All our children need quality education. That's the natural resource of our state. We don't have mountains, we don't have lakes. What we have are our kids. So we need to focus in and make sure that our kids are able to be future economic development for our state. Which leads me to my second issue, which is economic development. If we all do well, then we don't have to worry as much about taxes. High tide raises all ships. That's why I'm for the minimum wage amendment. And finally, I would say we have to do something about our prison system. It's broken. We're letting prisoners out early. We had a situation where a prisoner was let out on weekend furlough, killing people, and it turned out that he had a safe house, a government-sponsored safe house during the week. He was in prison. Nobody knew about it. We have a real problem.
All right, I'm going to have to cut you out. Appreciate
your vote November 4th.
That's right. Hey, so what I consider the hottest legislative race in the state is LD8, the Dundee Benson area. I want to thank Gwenn. I want to thank Burke for coming. But we'll be right back with my 2 cents.
Do you know about 211? It's help for an elderly relative or a troubled teen, family counseling, or job training. Instead of hunting for phone numbers, dial 211. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, talk to someone who will find the local information you need. United Way and its statewide partners want you to get connected and get answers. Dial 211 or go online at ne211.org.
My son, the Cub Scout, helped raise money to make camping safer.
My son, the Cub Scout, stood up to the school bully.
My son, the Cub Scout, volunteers at the homeless shelter.
My sons, the Boy Scouts, helped clean up after the devastating flood.
My son, the Eagle Scout, helped save a man's life.
My sons, the Eagle Scouts, are defending our nation.
My son, the Eagle Scout, became a doctor,
civil engineer,
police chief,
wonderful husband and father,
state senator.
Join scouting2012.org.
When we started this program nearly 2 years ago, my mission was to provide a platform for all sides of an issue to come together and have a conversation. This is an opportunity where the experts and the educated advocates can come together and educate you, our audience, on their point of view, to let you make up your own minds where you stand on the issue. For every program, we work very hard to ensure that we have all sides of an issue present. Our viewpoint team consists of every political identity across the spectrum. In recent weeks, I've personally received emails, phone calls, and other messages accusing our program of being nothing but a platform for the conservative voice, that we only have conservatives on our show, and that there is never a progressive or a liberal voice. I guess I just can't imagine what we did when we talked to State Senator Jeremy Nordquist about the minimum wage, or that we had both Amy Melton and Ben Gray together at the same time, or perhaps this morning I was only talking to Gwenn Aspen. You know, let me make this very simple for those who doubt our focus on a level playing field. It is not viewpoint that sets up the scene that you see each week. It is those who accept or refuse to participate. Let me explain. Since we started this program, we have invited the leadership of the Democratic Party, both at the state and local levels, to participate in various conversations. Each time we invite the leadership of a political party, we invite the leadership of all political parties, including libertarians. Each time, the leadership of the Democratic Party at both the state and local levels have refused to be on our show with their counterparts. Let me be very clear. They have refused each and every invitation we have extended. On November 2nd, we'll be airing our election prediction show. We've invited the leadership of every political party at the local and state level, as well as some local political analysts. Any guess who accepted our invitation and who's refused? We have confirmations from both the Republican and Libertarian leadership, but refusals from the Democratic parties. Now, I tell you all this because the integrity of this program is my paramount concern. I want our audience to know that we do not and will not set the stage for a biased program. But sometimes there are issues too important to set aside. If we've had guests, past or future, who share with us that they are discouraged to be on our program because the people with the opposing view will also be on the show. Courage is being presented by those that step up and face being challenged. Here's my policy on what is presented on Viewpoint with Chris Pierce. We invite the very best representatives on all sides of an issue. If they refuse to participate, the show will and must go on. If I were to wait until everyone agreed to be on part of a show, we wouldn't have a show. The same policy holds true during election time. We invite all candidates to participate. If one side decides to turn us down, we're going to go ahead with the show. For example, the Democratic candidate for Governor, Chuck Hasselbrook, will be on our program, and we are working with Pete Ricketts' campaign to schedule a time for him as well. But if Mr. Ricketts cannot participate, we will go forward with Mr. Hasselbrook's interview. Remember at the beginning of my little diatribe, I told you that my mission was to provide a platform for all points of view. I provide this platform so that we can work hard to ensure all points of view are represented. But as my father told me, you can provide a thirsty horse with water, but you can't make him drink. Now I put this into your hands, our audience, specifically our Democratic viewers. If you want to ensure that a progressive, liberal, Democratic voice is consistently heard on the important issues of our community, then you will need to put your pressure on your leadership. Reach out to Vince Powers, the chairman of the Nebraska Democratic Party, and Leslie Wiseman of the Douglas County Democratic Party. Let them know that when they receive an invitation to participate on this program, accept that invitation. Their contact information is at the bottom of your screen. Don't let their refusals silence your voice. With that, we close this morning's show. Tune in next week when we'll have OPS School Board President Justin Wayne and Nebraska Taxpayers for Freedom's Doug Kagan. They're going to be stepping up and not shying away from the OPS School Board bond issue that will be on the November ballot. I want to thank State Senator Burke Harr and Gwenn Aspen for being here this morning. And until next week, remember, everyone has a point of view. Respect it.